John F. Kennedy and Ann-Margret. Their chemistry on screen was famous. But was there a fight for the spotlight going on behind Viva Las Vegas's hottest dance scene? We're going to show what really happened today. In 1964, in the sunny Riviera Ballroom, the rock and roll king played with a new foe. An actress whose raw ability and electrifying moves always make him worry that she will steal the show. Behind the shiny outfits and gasping fans is something that no one sees. A silent battle of charm that almost changed the way power works in Hollywood. But behind the scenes, a more disturbing story was being told while the cameras were rolling and the sign lights told one story. So, how did this amazing pair first meet? And did the sparks happen right away on and off camera? The start of an electric team. It was 1963. The sound stages at MGM were full of powerful energy. Elvis Presley, a king, was about to meet a force that might have been even brighter than he was. The sparks didn't happen right away. They said there would be a full-on movie inferno. Los Angeles. In the early 1960s was a world of carefully thought-out dreams. It's already safe to say that Elvis Presley was a culture monarch. His movie work was a reliable source of wealth. This stable sky was then filled with Ann-Margret Olsen. She had Swedish and American roots. After her explosive performance in Bye Bye Birdie, her star shot up at a very fast rate. Her energy wasn't just the joy of being young. It felt like a current. The people at MGM who were planning Viva Las Vegas knew they needed more than just a pretty face. For the role, they needed a co-star whose star power would not be overpowered by Presley's fame. The story of their first meeting is now part of Hollywood folklore. It happened on the busy, exciting set of Viva Las Vegas. Ann-Margret handled this meeting with a high level of professionalism, which she would later write about in her autobiography. She knew how important Elvis was, but she was also confident in her own growing artistic power. Elvis, for his part, is said to have met her with his famous Southern charm, a warmth that could calm people down. But people who paid close attention might have seen a quick recognition in his eyes. This wasn't like any other celebrity. When Ann-Margret got there, she had a very bad image. Her free-flowing, high-voltage performance style was already talked about in the business world. Later, Film Inc. magazine pointed out that she had clearly been more energetic than her three earlier male co-stars. It was clear what it meant. A lot of people tried to keep up. Not many really succeeded. Ann-Margret stood out because she was naturally lively. It set the stage for a very charged conversation with Presley. The same movie review said Elvis might have been the first main man with enough charm to really match her. There was more to this than fame. It was a bond that came from a shared fundamental understanding of achievement. The way they got together didn't involve the usual Hollywood niceties. Reports that you can trust say this happened quickly. There was an instant and deep bond made. A deep, intuitive knowledge of music held it together. It was Ann-Margret herself who said it best, "We felt music the same way." They seemed to talk to each other through beat, which they didn't say. This strong musical connection would later become the solid base of their famous on-screen relationship. People started to talk about the mood on set. Was this strong connection just business respect between two great artists? Or did those sexy, clear romantic hints start to weave their way in from that first meeting? Such enticing stories, whether they were based on exact facts or mild embellishments, definitely fed public opinion. There was an almost fated attraction that drew these two together. It is safe to say that the company was very happy to see these changes happen. Viva Las Vegas was planned to be like a movie show. There was an undeniable white-hot chemistry between its main stars that led to its final success. The weight of expectation was huge. There were a lot of professional stakes at stake. But as soon as Elvis Presley and Ann-Margret met, it was clear that the movie's most important part had been easily added. What happened afterward in front of the cameras wasn't just playing. It was an honest, unplanned spark. There were times when a mix of very strong personalities threatened to overshadow the movie it was meant to serve. Some of the most memorable musical scenes ever made were made possible by this raw link. Picture yourself on that set. Could you feel the electricity? When Elvis saw Ann-Margret's ability for himself, what did he really think? They quickly took their shared love of music to the dance floor. But did one of them really shine brighter than the other, making scenes so hot that they became famous? The dance floor gets hot. Better than Elvis? Ann-Margret and Elvis Presley were more than just co-stars dancing when they met on the dance floor. In Ann-Margret's own unforgettable words, they turned into virtual mirror images that released a kinetic desire that almost set the film on fire. For Viva Las Vegas, the practices were times of intense, focused creation. These were not just quick runs through. They were places where raw ability was turned into a movie legend. There are very few behind-the-scenes photos, but the ones that are available give us a glimpse of this very careful process. Elvis and Ann-Margret work hard to perfect moments of pure screen magic. You can often see them in simple practice clothes, and their faces shine from the effort. David Winters put together most of the routines for these now iconic scenes. This was a very important choice. Surprisingly, Winters used to be Ann-Margret's own dance pupil. She stood up for him. She suggested that he play this important part in Viva Las Vegas. It was Winters' first big job as a director on a movie, a big step up. The level of detail and depth with which he knew Ann-Margret's. Sometimes, his time on screen went down. He became less noticeable. What would make a seasoned director take this chance? There is no doubt about the answer. Outstanding ability needs to be recognized. Sydney saw something very strange. It had to be caught. Her powerful presence was essential, making the movie's heartbeat electric. Now, think about an interesting thing that people have said. Some people saw that Elvis's lip-syncing was shaky or even off during scenes with a lot of action. Why? A common idea says that Ann-Margret's mesmerizing performance took the focus off of her. Her energy was so fascinating that it might have made Elvis lose his concentration. They dance in very different ways. Elvis, with his famous moves like swiveling his hips and shaking his legs quickly, had a raw rock and roll energy. Everything was amazed by it. But Ann-Margret brought a different, more powerful set of weapons. The Marjorie Young School of Dance taught her how to dance properly. Even though this technical basis was clear, it was filled with a natural high energy that was hard to control. Her style was a mix of speed, accuracy, and freedom. She had to take up most of the space they shared visually. There was a force to her ability that wouldn't go away. This brings up an important and almost touchy question. How did Elvis Presley, who was without a doubt king, really feel? A man who was used to being the center of attention wherever he went. It's about a co-star who could possibly steal the show in his own movie. Especially in an arena, which is what people think of when they think of him as a performer of music and dance. Was there even a hint of jealousy at work? An unpleasant moment? Or did he just admire another artist? An artist who was at the top of her game. The facts of history can be interpreted in different ways, but the proof on the screen is clear for everyone to see. Let us take another close look at this scene. Do you think Ann-Margret is out here dancing Elvis? Could you look away from her? Tell the truth. People are paying attention to her work. It makes you want to respond. People were paying attention to this on-screen supernova, this explosion of ability and charm. Somewhat behind the scenes, the respect was probably starting to mix with the worry. There was a fight going on for control, for the very heart of the movie's center. Now, what did really happen when the cam stopped? The Colonel's rage and what the king is said to be in a tough spot. It got really exciting when the cameras stopped rolling. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's strict boss, was said to be seeing red, and it wasn't just the bright lights of Las Vegas. There was no denying that Elvis and Ann-Margret looked great together on TV. Too clear-cut, maybe, for some. Parker, a brilliant planner who had worked hard to create the myth of Elvis Presley, saw a threat. It wasn't exactly a romantic threat, it was a professional one, a threat to his star client's undisputed lead. The movie was called Viva Las Vegas and stars Elvis Presley. Even so, Ann-Margret often seemed to be surrounded by the buzz and energy. Her skill was like a flame. Parker's job was to put out flames, especially ones that could hurt the king. According to detailed reports like those from Elvis Infonet, Colonel Parker was mostly mad at George Sidney. Sidney was in charge of making the movie. Parker said that Sidney was trying to redirect the movie's attention away from Elvis and toward Ann-Margret, making her the real star. Parker is said to have told the producers very clearly that this was an Elvis Presley movie and that it was his money that was being spent. His name. He supposedly got angry that Sidney was giving Ann-Margret too many good close-ups and too many takes at her already amazing dance routines. Sidney, who was a seasoned director, explained his decisions. He said Ann-Margret was a truly amazing artist. The crowd would love her. Her lively presence made the movie and Elvis better. But Parker was not easily persuaded by debates about art. His worries were about business. They were all about staying in charge and keeping Elvis at the top of his game. The fight got worse. It was easy to feel the stress on set. Two specific combos that had been carefully practiced and filmed were cut out. One was "You're the Boss," a silly and fun song. The other one was a soft, truly romantic ballad called "Today, Tomorrow, and Forever." It was said that the second one in particular was a beautiful scene. Elvis singing to Ann-Margret. Close and sincere. Footage or stills from this cutscene, which are sometimes shared by Country Rebel, give you an idea of how powerful it was emotionally. Its loss changed the movie's romantic focus for sure. It slowed down the progress of their love story on screen. Why did they cut these scenes? The stated reasons could have been time or speed. It was said that Colonel Parker's direct involvement was the reason. He supposedly thought that these songs put Ann-Margret to center stage and put her on the same level as Elvis. The song "The Lady Loves Me" stayed the same, but the way people worked together had clearly changed. Elvis's own feelings were said to add another layer to this drama behind the scenes. According to some sources, Elvis himself told Parker what was wrong. He was said to have thought Sidney was trying to leave him out of the picture. Fox News even brought up director George Sidney's claim that Elvis was sometimes jealous of how much attention Ann-Margret got. It is said that this envy led the director to choose a certain scene for the movie's ending. A split screen made sure that both stars got equal but different visual credit. A deal, or maybe a giving in. So, this is what happened at its core. Even though there were professional fireworks and scenes that were cut that caused a lot of controversy, Elvis and Ann-Margret had formed an undeniable, deeply personal bond that seemed to go beyond politics. Some whispered that it was a real soulmate link, but was it really that? Or was it just another brilliant illusion skillfully made in the harsh Hollywood lights? Soulmates or just Hollywood BS? Ann-Margret once told Elvis Presley that he was her partner in words that were both soft and haunting. Yet, as sweet as that sounds, the truth may not be in the fairy tale. Not really, though. Not while Priscilla was back at Graceland and Hollywood was shining its harsh lights on them. What did she really mean? What was the real strength of that link? Jane Austen never really makes Elvis look like the one who got away in her autobiography, My Story. She talks about something more subtle and lasting instead. She says they were made of the same stuff, which sounds eerie and spiritual and sounds less like happily ever after and more like an endless mirror or someone who just got it. Things did get rough quickly behind the scenes. Elvis's close friend and confidant Lamar Fike once said, "It got hot and heavy." A different Memphis mafioso named Marty Lacker said that they cared a great deal about each other. These were not everyday words. They came from men who had seen Elvis go through a lot of relationships and kept a cool head about it all. But something felt different about Ann-Margret. The way they were close had its own rules and quirks. A lot of the time, Ann-Margret signed Elvis's letters Poop. Or Thumper, a private nickname with both grown-up and childish meanings. And Elvis? He had a round pink bed. Made just for her. For her, not for Graceland. This wasn't just a one-night stand. There was someone else waiting in Memphis, though. Someone who had already given up being a kid for the king. Miss Priscilla Beaulieu. Since Priscilla is there, every passionate memory Ann-Margret dared to share has a long, quiet shadow over it. And Ann-Margret never claimed it wasn't true. She wrote to both Colonel Parker and the United States. And love, real love, didn't always work with the plans. Some people also said that the studio might have made the fires worse. There was electric spark between Ann and Elvis. But was everything real? Or is it part of the Viva Las Vegas advertising? Most likely, the answer is somewhere in the middle. Their relationship started out as real. It might even be holy. However, Hollywood has a way of making love stronger, desire bigger, and chemistry more valuable. And things changed in a subtle, uncomfortable way on set. Still, their love for each other never went away. Even after all these years, Ann-Margret always talks about Elvis with love and respect, never with anger. But the warmth couldn't protect them from what was coming. Fox News once said 6 scary words that summed it up. The love story ended too soon. Why not? Was it because of the rivalries, the management, the fans, or just the fact that two flames that are so close to each other can't stay lit forever? No matter what the reason was, they did not end their story in a church, whether they were soulmates or not. It was quiet at the end. And maybe in a different life, that pink bed would have been at Graceland. However, before we close the chapter, let us go back a little ways because the ending of their story may be the most heartbreaking part. The quiet split, the promise that wasn't spoken, and the last act that said more than words ever could. What could have been outside of the spotlight? Even though they were no longer together, the sounds of their exciting performance together in Viva Las Vegas were heard for decades. Some fans still had one question in their minds long after the lights went out and the curtain fell. What might have happened? By the time Viva Las Vegas was over in theaters, Ann-Margret wasn't just riding Elvis's popularity. Every time Ann-Margret started a show, a flower arrangement in the shape of an Elvis-style guitar would show up backstage. It wasn't just memories. It was an act that was full of meaning, love, and respect. It could have been a quiet protest against the Colonel's strict control over Elvis's public image. He found a way to praise her intelligence even when they were alone. But when the movie came out, most people didn't pay much attention to how deep their relationship really was. The flirting that happened on screen was just for show. There was competition off-screen, intense practices, and musical numbers that were cut. They weren't splashed on magazine covers, people talked about them in the halls of the studio. The real fire behind the frame only came to light later, through memoirs, behind-the-scenes stories, and a few comments that were left in the right places. What Viva Las Vegas left behind now has more weight. Was its lasting draw just the music in the show, or does that barely contained tension deserve its place in film history? That dance-off that wasn't said? Some critics now say that the energy between Elvis and Ann-Margret is one of the most electrifying scenes in movie history. A spark that was too real and raw to be staged. Had the pairs made it past the cutting room floor? In that story, had Ann-Margret's star been a little brighter? Would Elvis's next movies have been brave enough to have female stars who were stronger and more active? Could it have changed his path from safe musical vehicles to more emotionally charged material? What is certain is that film caught a very rare event. A time when two forces came together, put each other to the test, and raised the whole production. How will you ever watch Viva Las Vegas the same way again now that you know everything we've told you? Otherwise, you might be looking for the looks that stayed a little too long, the moves that weren't planned, and the magic that wouldn't go away no matter what. Once the curtain is pulled back, the truth lies beneath the rhinestones. Ann-Margret did more than just follow Elvis. He may have even been pushed out of his comfort zone by her. The way she moved on that set wasn't choreographed. It was raw, rebellious fire that was magnetic without any shame. The balance changed somewhere in the smoky parts of that Vegas set. Colonel Parker stepped in after Elvis's camp saw what was going on. Even though scenes were cut short and energy was controlled, the silent dance-off was already burned into the film. We saw friendship, but they felt competition. Their story is still more than just a rumor. Star power, love, and desire all come together in this situation. It was like two giants were locked in rhythm and competition. Go back now. Once more, watch Viva Las Vegas. Keep an eye on her feet. Keep an eye on his eyes. After that, ask yourself this. Did Ann-Margret dance better than the king? Share your thoughts below. We'll see you again soon.